Hi, I'm Dr. Dan Ratner. In this segment of our how-to series, we are going to explore how to understand and deal with insomnia. If you haven't already done so, hit subscribe, ring the bell for notifications, and put your comments below. What is insomnia? Now, of course, we all know that insomnia is when you can't sleep when you want to. But the way I define insomnia could be a helpful way to figure out how to deal with it. Insomnia is actually a restlessness of the mind. Now, at some level, you know what I'm talking about. If you've been there, you can't get yourself to rest. But I want to focus not on the fact that you can't get yourself to rest, but on the fact that there is a restlessness and what you can do to get out of that restless experience. So let me offer some tips to start with. The very first thing I do, if I have insomnia, which happens fairly often, is I remember I have to enjoy the experience of being in that bed. I have to enjoy that it's nice and soft, that I'm lying there, I can feel the pillows. It's a kind of mindfulness exercise to enjoy the bed. I even enjoy that I have nothing to do. You know, there's all kinds of times during the day where we have so much to do, and we even might complain about it or feel rushed, but we don't remember to enjoy when we don't have that. Sometimes that's the trick that will get you to fall asleep. So that's the first thing I try. The next thing I try is to let my mind go wherever it needs to go. There's nothing more relaxing for the mind than knowing it can roam freely and go wherever it wants to go. But a lot of times we're not doing that. Sometimes we are thinking, I'm not getting to sleep. I'm not getting to sleep. I'm not getting to sleep. When you're thinking that, that's not where your mind is going naturally. That's you trying to control it. Stop trying to control your mind and it will drift off and you'll be much more likely to fall asleep. If that's not working, one other thing you can do if you do need to take control of your mind is instead of thinking about the fact that you're not falling asleep, you want to pick something that you enjoy thinking about. Now, typically you don't want to pick something that revs you up, gets you all excited, like if you're playing in a big basketball game the next day. You may not want to be thinking about that because that'll get your adrenaline going. But pick something you enjoy about that's a little more neutral. Maybe just think about a movie you saw. That will let your mind start to drift into where it wants to go. So I already made reference to this, but try not to concentrate on the time or how much time you have left to sleep or how much sleep you will get. These are things that overrule the mind's ability to go where it needs to go, and that will just make your mind even more restless. So these are a couple of tips, but if that doesn't work, then what do you do? The next step is to start to find out what is this restlessness actually about. So that's not where I start. Some people think, well, let me figure out where the restlessness is. First, try these tips, because a lot of times you won't even need to start thinking about it. But if you can't get past the insomnia with these tips, it's telling you that the restlessness is trying to communicate something to you. I talk all the time about how symptoms are a communication. Insomnia is a symptom, and it is a communication. So let's talk about the sources of that restlessness. One source of that kind of restlessness is an external conflict that must be dealt with. So one rule that you often hear people say is don't go to bed angry. Some people subscribe to that and some people don't. The fact is, from a therapy perspective, I would say, generally speaking, it's a good idea to not go to bed angry. I do side with those people. But it's also something that even people who don't want to talk and don't want to talk it out don't realize that they're actually punishing themselves in addition to the person they're angry with. So if you're angry at your spouse and you want to go to bed angry, you're going to end up punishing yourself too. It'll be harder for you to go to sleep. Anger is a very hard thing to sleep through. It's the number one emotion that you can't really sleep with. So if you're angry, your mind may not be able to rest. It might need you to address that conflict in some way. I can remember distinctly a time when that was happening when I was just graduated from college. I was going to be rooming with somebody when I moved out to LA, and I realized this is not a good fit. I'm not going to live well with this person, and I need to tell him now because we had to decide within that week. And I tossed and turned and tossed and turned and tossed and turned. Now, I'll get to a strategy that I ended up using about that, but ultimately the external conflict needed to be dealt with. Sometimes it's not anger that's keeping you up, but worry about that conflict. So that's another reason you got to get up and do something about it. But it's not just external conflicts that can keep you up at night. It's internal conflict. When we say don't lose any sleep over it, we mean it. A lot of times we do lose sleep over external or internal conflict. And if you can't get yourself to relax, that's a sign of something. Insomnia is not just a problem. It's a symptom. It's a sign that there's something on your mind. And it's telling you, don't go to sleep. You have to deal with this. So you may be chewing on something that you aren't settled about. And insomnia is a sign of that. This can be about serious issues or not serious issues. I mean, I've had insomnia from a fantasy sports draft. Who was I going to draft? And going back and forth and back and forth. Sometimes you actually have to get up and get that resolved and figure out what you're going to do, and then you can go back to sleep. Now, here's the thing about why insomnia is such a central issue for mind-body experience. Insomnia happens close to the time of sleep, and sleep is close to the unconscious time. It's close to the time where your mind and your unconscious is really active, and the mind knows that it's getting close to that. So if you're having a conflict, around the time of sleep is where you're going to have an issue. We see this all the time with kids. Bedtime is hard with kids because they know they're close to the conflicts. They know they're close to the unconscious. So as adults, we can help them with these strategies. These strategies work for kids too, but they also work for us. Now, as you're trying to figure out how to deal with your own restlessness, you're going to have to figure out how you work. There are different strategies that are going to work for different people. For example, I am a person who never liked to procrastinate. I used to come home from elementary school and do my homework right away. And I know that I'm in the minority about that, and I'm not saying it to brag. What I'm saying is I take that piece of self-knowledge and I apply it even to insomnia and symptoms. If I'm tossing and turning and I'm restless, one thing I know about myself is that I need tasks finished. So some people say, oh, you got to stop working so hard. You got to stop doing the tasks if you're having symptoms. And for other people, no, you actually have to get the tasks off your plate because that's how you work. And I'm a mix of the two. Sometimes I need to stop working so hard and go watch a movie or go to sleep. And other times I need to go do the work so that I can then relax. But that's part of how I work. You need to figure out what you need to get your mind at rest. So here is the central question to ask yourself. Are you giving yourself what you need to give yourself restfulness? If you're having insomnia, the chances are that you're not. There's something you're not giving yourself, and you need to identify what needs to be settled. To do that, you're going to need to come up with your strategies for dealing with restlessness. Here are a couple of examples of what I've come up with, but I really encourage you, put your comments below on your strategies for dealing with restlessness, because we're a community and we can help each other out. I don't have all the ideas. You're going to have some of the ideas, and we will keep working to develop them. But this will give you some sense of an idea of the kinds of things that you can do to deal with restlessness. One is, go ahead and get up. Let yourself get up and do something else for a while. The worst thing is to sit there and think, I'm not sleeping. I'm not sleeping. I'm not going to fall asleep. The weird thing is, the more confident you are that you will fall asleep, the more likely you will fall asleep. And if you're losing confidence by lying there, then it helps to go ahead and get up. Go ahead and do something else. It's fine. Now, speaking of that, sometimes we're restless because we aren't getting what we need. Now, there are times where I am hungry and I realize I'm hungry because I'm actually tired. The driving factor is fatigue, and then I might take a nap instead of eat. But sometimes it's the opposite. Sometimes you can't fall asleep because actually you're kind of hungry, or you're thirsty, or you're experiencing anger. The basic drives drives are a term used in psychology. The basic drives of psychology are hunger, thirst, sexual desire, and aggression. Those are three areas you can look in, and you can kind of change the modality of your insomnia by thinking, well, do I want any of that? Do I need food? Do I need to drink something? Do I want to have sex? Am I angry about something? Something active is happening, and that's going to get in the way of you feeling able to rest. Your mind switches off when it feels like the desires are all met. So you may want to look at that. I'm not encouraging you to just eat all the time if you're having insomnia, or seek out sex all the time, or get into a fight. These are just ways that you can switch the modality if one of those drives feels active. So here's another thing. If you need to work because that's what's on your mind, don't override it. Go ahead. Maybe you have hundreds of emails to respond to. I've certainly been there as recently as last night. And I know that sometimes I'm going to need to say, that'll have to wait until tomorrow. And other times my mind is going to tell me, no, you have to get it done now. But whatever you choose to do, essentially, when you're dealing with the restlessness of insomnia, you have two goals. Either you need to enjoy something, or you need to make progress on what is causing the restlessness. So again, either you need to find something to enjoy, which could just be the bed and just lying there and knowing with confidence that you will fall asleep. Or it could be that you need to go ahead and make progress on whatever's getting in the way of that restlessness. Or actually, causing that restlessness. Two other ideas that can help at such times. I'm going to do a separate video on meditation. And I do a particular type of meditation that I developed partially myself. I also developed it in reading Herbert Benson's book, The Relaxation Response, which is one of the original books on meditation. But meditation can help. So when you are feeling really restless, it can be helpful to have a meditation practice. And I'll just briefly explain mine. I have a mantra that I say to myself, and I just concentrate on the breathing. And actually, this is something I end up enjoying. If I'm not enjoying it, I don't go in that direction. So you always have to alter. If enjoyment's not working, maybe you need to make progress on what's causing the restlessness. And when you can't enjoy things, you're not going to be able to meditate very well. So meditation is something that helps as an option for something to enjoy and settle yourself down and get towards restfulness. Another thing that I do, though, especially if I have an external conflict on the mind, is I write an email or a letter or a journal entry to myself. Sometimes I even write it as if I'm going to send it to the person I'm mad at. Usually I don't, very rarely, but sometimes I'll go back and do that later. But in the middle of the night when you're having insomnia, it can be very helpful to get those feelings out, and then your mind can rest. So let me remind you also, don't worry if you have insomnia. You'll rest when you're tired. Your body knows what to do. You'll fall asleep. You don't have to worry about it this given night, but this gives you some strategies and ways to think about it that should be helpful. So if you can't sleep, go ahead and use the time. That's okay. Figure out how you work with insomnia. Figure out what's the source of your restlessness, and you can fall asleep. So I do hope that was helpful, but put your comments and questions below, and I'm happy to weigh in more. If you haven't already, click subscribe, hit like if you like what you're hearing, ring the bell for notifications, and keep those comments coming. I'm really enjoying these discussions with you, and I will always get back to you directly. Thank you for watching.